trust. Now that you've briefed people properly, you've given them like an absolute game plan, you then trust them to go and execute it. And then that's what you talk about afterwards. So then when you go to the Reds, it is different. You bring a lot of those aspects to it, but now, your one aim is to be the best in the world. And that is at flying, formation aerobatics. That means we're going to have to be really close, really tight. We're going to have to trust each other implicitly, because there's no time sometimes to react. I mean, a lot of times there is, but a lot of times there isn't. And so you trust people to be in the right place at the right time. And also, you're not going to speak just because there's a saying, just because you've got a voice in a radio doesn't mean you can use it. You're going to say what you need to say at the time, clear, concise, and then you just shut up. No comment. No, oh, what about this? No, oh, isn't it a lovely day today? Which sounds really brutal, but in those moments of pure execution, we haven't got time for this. So it's right. Just be there, be on point, know your drills, know that we trust you. And therefore, that's a big part of it because you feel backed. Now let's go get the job done.
And how did you get into the red arrows? Because we can see them all lined up there behind you on the wall. Nice.
How did I get in the Reds? So the way in which that happens is you need a certain amount of flying time. It's 1,500 hours flying fighters. You need to be assessed as above average from your peers. You need to have been on an operational squadron, as I mentioned before. And then you apply. They don't come looking for you. So you have to have applied. So you have to, what that shows is a level of interest.
Yeah.
Because it's all well and good going out and scouting all the best people, but if they don't actually want to be there, are you going to get the best team?
Probably and was not. That always on your, was that something from when you were a kid that you kind of always...
Yeah, I was, I've left my phone out the way so I don't get distracted, but there's a picture there of me that my mum's got. I think I'm like age 12, just like looking up at the Reds. So it's quite cool that it went full circle and actually did it. So yeah, it was really cool. And so you apply, you go through a selection process. I mean, the first time I failed completely, horribly. The flying test was on. There's a bit of a saying, if you fail the flying test, you're not allowed to go back. So I was probably on the brink of that. So I was lucky there. And I think just you're surrounded by, like, even though you know the guys, right? Because you've all been friends previously. When you see them in the Red Jets doing their job, there's just something different about it. I guess it's like, training with the first team for the first time. And like, them from the bar, them in the changing room, them in the car park, you see them on the high street, have a coffee with them, say hello. But when they're in their training jerseys and they're actually running, full hell, and they're hitting each other, and you just think, when they're doing their job, performing at that level, that's when you realize, like, shit, these guys are good. Yeah. And so I think I kind of went into my shell a little bit, wasn't the character that I was, talked in questions like, hey, how's your day? Oh, good. What are you doing? Rather than like a conversation, I probably just pissed them off. It's like, don't get anywhere near him because he just asks you a million questions. So anyway, bottom line is I didn't get in. And then the next year there was another issue, which meant that I actually couldn't go to the training camp. And then finally in my third year, and this is another lesson of just, if you've got a dream, you've got an ambition, just keep turning up. And so eventually on my third application, which you can only do it every year. So after 3 years of just turning up, then probably out of pity, they gave me a job.
God, I'm sure not.
Not at all.
In fact, that was, so how long were you with the Red Arrows?
So that was 2016. So I was, I joined them. So what you do is you join them towards the end of their season. So you get to see the guys doing the job. You live it and breathe it. You go to all the air shows with them. You get to understand the logistics. You get to understand the relationship with the engineers. So you get the full team buy-in. And then towards the end of 16, started training. So you end up doing 3 seasons, but you're normally with them about 3.5, 4 years, that kind of time. And then each year, that's why I got 3 different pitches behind me, because each year they move you into a different position. You're not allowed to be in the same position for more than a season, because they want to keep you on your toes so that you keep engaged, you don't get complacent. And there's 2 thoughts there. Is like, but you lose the experience. I understood that, especially with sport, you put someone in that position, they get really good at it. They become world-class in that one position because they understand the move, they understand where they need to be. But a bit of complacency does come in. And in our environment, we couldn't have any complacency. So, I mean, I remember one particular show, which is pretty bad, actually. It was like an evening show and we were halfway through it. And it wasn't particularly technical at the time. I think it was, it was one of the lesser challenging moves, but we were still upside down altogether, like rolling. And I remember thinking like, right. So it's probably about 7:30, because your mind wanders, right? And I was like, right, it's about 7:30. We'll land at about 8. I'll get home for about 9. I've got 3 chicken breasts in the fridge. I'm out of date today. I'm going to have to cook all 3. That's really annoying. That kind of thing. And then you think, mate, what are you doing? And you snap back into the present moment, right? And you go back into flow. But I think that's the big thing, right? Being complacent, it takes you out of flow for a moment, because.
So then do you get confused which color you're meant to put on?
Oh, where's this going? Has someone told you?
Well, no, because if you get to switch places, don't you
sorry, I thought someone fed you some information about when I did actually put the wrong color smoke on for a big fly past.
No, did you actually do that?
Yeah, and a massive fly past, like thousands of people.
Oh,
and
no.
We'd even joked that morning about how we're not going to do it, but it happened. So but yeah, no, so you learn, and that's the thing. I think by moving position, you have to learn new smokes, you have to learn new calls, you have to learn new moves, inputs, everything. But that keeps you sharp, because then you've got to learn the whole thing again. So by the time you get complacent with it, even if you aren't, the chance of complacency coming in happens around the end of the season, because a display season is about 5-6 months, and you'll probably do 70 to 90 fixtures over a 5-month period. So you're busy. Yeah, when you compare that to like a sports team, although they play for longer, you're on it. So from the end of May till about October. In fact, the guys have been displaying all this season, and I think in the next couple of days they're flying out to the Middle East to then do a Middle East season at the end of it. So those guys will probably do about 90 fixtures.